Abkhazia, a hidden land on the Black Sea, full of mystery, beauty, and untold stories. Let's discover it together. Abkhazia is a breakaway region that unilaterally declared independence from Georgia in 1992, triggering a brutal war between Abkhaz separatists and the Georgian government. The war, which lasted until 1993, resulted in Abkhaz forces gaining control, with significant military and logistical support from Russia and North Caucasian militants. This conflict led to the mass displacement of ethnic Georgians, many of whom were forced to flee as refugees. Despite declaring independence, Abkhazia remains in a state of limbo. Only a handful of countries recognize it as a sovereign nation, while the United Nations and most of the international community still consider it part of Georgia. Since 2008, after the Russo-Georgian War, Russia has maintained a strong military presence in Abkhazia, effectively making it a de facto Russian protectorate. Before the war in the early 1990s, ethnic Georgians made up nearly 46% of Abkhazia's population, while ethnic Abkhaz accounted for only around 17%. The rest of the population included Russians, Armenians, and Greeks. However, after the war, over 250,000 ethnic Georgians were forcibly displaced or fled in fear of persecution. This ethnic cleansing drastically altered the demographic structure of Abkhazia. Today, ethnic Abkhaz form the largest ethnic group, but their numbers remain low compared to pre-war levels, making them reliant on alliances with Russia and other minorities. The Abkhaz leadership has struggled to maintain a stable population due to low birth rates and high immigration, leading to concerns about the region's long-term sustainability. Abkhazia operates under an unrecognized economy, meaning it lacks international banking access and foreign investment opportunities. Because of its disputed status, it faces heavy economic isolation, with only Russia providing significant financial aid and trade. Over 50% of Abkhazia's budget comes from direct Russian subsidies, and most of its tourism sector relies on Russian visitors, who make up around 90% of tourists. However, despite this support, the region struggles with high unemployment, lack of industrial development, and reliance on smuggling to sustain certain goods and services. Infrastructure remains poor, with many buildings still in ruins from the war. The lack of international recognition also prevents Abkhazia from participating in global economic forums, deepening its dependence on Russia. Since recognizing Abkhazia's independence in 2008, Russia has established a strong military presence in the region. Today, around 4,000 Russian troops are stationed in Abkhazia, with Russian border guards patrolling its frontiers. The region is home to a large Russian military base in Gdada, equipped with air defense systems and modern weaponry. This military presence serves two strategic purposes. First, it prevents Georgia from attempting to reclaim Abkhazia, and second, it strengthens Russia's influence in the Black Sea region. Moscow has also issued Russian passports to most Abkhazians, making them Russian citizens. This process, known as passportization, gives Russia justification to protect Abkhazia under the pretense of defending its citizens. However, this close relationship has led to concerns that Abkhazia is slowly losing its autonomy and becoming an extension of Russia. Abkhazia is home to stunning landscapes, featuring the Caucasus Mountains, subtropical beaches, and ancient forests. It is also known for Lake Ritsa, one of the most picturesque alpine lakes in the world, and the New Athos Cave, a massive underground cave system attracting adventurers. However, despite its natural beauty, Abkhazia's tourism industry is fragile and almost entirely reliant on Russian visitors. Due to its unrecognized status, tourists from Western countries cannot enter Abkhazia through Georgia without facing legal consequences in Tbilisi. Most travelers must enter via Russia, further isolating the region. The lack of international investment means that many hotels and resorts still operate with outdated Soviet-era infrastructure, making it difficult to attract high-spending tourists. The Abkhaz language is one of the most complex languages in the world, with over 60 consonants and only 2 vowels. Historically, it was suppressed during the Soviet era, when Russian and Georgian were prioritized. After gaining de facto independence, Abkhazia declared Abkhaz as the official language, but most of the population still speaks Russian as their first language. Russian is used in education, government, and media, leading to fears that the Abkhaz language might disappear over time. The Abkhaz government has made efforts to revive the language through language schools, publishing books in Abkhaz, and promoting its use in media, but progress is slow due to Russian cultural dominance. The war between Abkhaz separatists in Georgia from August 1992 to September 1993 was one of the bloodiest post-Soviet conflicts. It began when the Georgian government sent troops into Abkhazia to prevent separatist movements from gaining control. However, Abkhaz forces, with the support of North Caucasian militants, Russian volunteers, and even elements of the Russian military, launched a counteroffensive. The war culminated in the Battle of Sukhumi, September 1993, where Abkhaz forces captured the capital after weeks of heavy fighting. Thousands of ethnic Georgians were killed, and over 250,000 were forcibly displaced, leading to accusations of ethnic cleansing. The conflict solidified Abkhazia's breakaway status, but also left it in a state of political isolation and economic hardship. During the early Soviet period, Abkhazia was an autonomous Soviet republic, 1921 to 1931, meaning it had a level of independence within the USSR. However, in 1931, Joseph Stalin and Lavrentiy Beria, both ethnic Georgians, downgraded Abkhazia's status, making it an autonomous region within Soviet Georgia. This period saw a massive influx of ethnic Georgians into Abkhazia, changing its demographic balance. The Soviet government also promoted the Georgian language and culture while restricting the use of Abkhaz in schools and administration. Despite these policies, Abkhazia remained an important cultural and economic hub, especially as a Soviet tourist destination along the Black Sea coast. The resentment from this forced integration fueled nationalist movements, eventually leading to the 1992 war. Despite its small size, Abkhazia has a rich cultural and religious history influenced by Byzantine, Georgian, Russian, and Ottoman civilizations. The region is home to ancient Orthodox Christian sites, including the New Athos Monastery, built by Russian monks in the 19th century, and the Bedia Cathedral, dating back to the 10th century. However, religion in Abkhazia is complex. While Orthodox Christianity is the dominant faith, there are also Muslim Abkhazians, as well as influences from pagan traditions that predate Christianity and Islam. Some Abkhazians still practice traditional animist beliefs, honoring nature spirits and sacred sites. The cultural heritage of Abkhazia is also reflected in its unique dances, music, and warrior traditions, which are similar to those of the North Caucasus. The ethnic tensions between Abkhazians and Georgians did not start with the 1992 to 1993 war. Since the 19th century, Abkhazians have feared assimilation and demographic shifts imposed by larger neighboring ethnic groups. During the Soviet period, the forced settlement of Georgians in Abkhazia under Stalin further deepened ethnic divisions. Today, the situation remains unstable. Georgia still claims Abkhazia as its territory, and occasional border clashes have been reported, especially near the Inuri River, which acts as a de facto border. The Georgian government has also proposed a peaceful reintegration plan, offering autonomy to Abkhazia in exchange for reunification. However, many Abkhazians reject this, fearing they would lose their identity and independence. With Russia's strong military presence, any future attempt by Georgia to reclaim Abkhazia could escalate into a larger conflict. During the Soviet era, Abkhazia was a luxury resort destination for the Soviet elite, with grand hotels, sanatoriums, and vacation villas along the Black Sea coast. Cities like Gagra and Sukhumi were filled with tourists, and even Soviet leaders, including Stalin, had dachas, vacation homes, in Abkhazia. However, after the 1992 to 1993 war, many of these resorts were abandoned, turning into airy, overgrown ruins. The once bustling Syrtska railway station, an elegant structure built in the Soviet style, now sits empty, covered in moss and decay. Entire districts of Sukhumi remain in ruins, with bullet-riddled buildings standing as reminders of the war. While some areas have been partially restored for tourism, many remain frozen in time, giving Abkhazia the reputation of being one of the world's most haunting post-Soviet ghost regions. One of the most strategically important structures for both Georgia and Abkhazia is the Inuri Dam, which is the largest hydroelectric dam in the Caucasus. Built during the Soviet era, the dam is located in Georgia, but its power plant is in Abkhazia. Despite the political conflict, both sides rely on this dam for electricity. Abkhazia receives about 40% of the generated power for free, while Georgia depends on the rest. However, due to poor maintenance and lack of investment, the dam faces serious structural risks, raising fears of potential failures that could cause flooding in both regions. This shared infrastructure has forced some level of cooperation between Georgia and Abkhazia, making it one of the few areas where diplomacy still exists. However, if tensions worsen, control over the dam could become a major political and economic flashpoint. Despite declaring independence in 1999, Abkhazia remains largely unrecognized by the international community. As of today, only 5 countries officially recognize Abkhazia as an independent state: Russia, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Nauru, and Syria. Most of the world, including the United Nations, the European Union, and NATO, considers Abkhazia part of Georgia. Even within the post-Soviet space, most countries, including Russia's allies like Belarus and Kazakhstan, have refused to recognize Abkhazia, fearing backlash from the West or concerns about their own separatist movements. The lack of recognition makes it impossible for Abkhazia to join the UN, sign international treaties, or receive direct foreign aid, forcing it to rely almost entirely on Russia for economic and political survival. Abkhazia's economy is heavily dependent on Russia, with over 50% of its budget funded directly by Moscow. The Russian government provides pensions, infrastructure development, and military funding to keep Abkhazia stable. The Russian ruble is the official currency of Abkhazia, and most trade happens with Russian businesses. However, this economic dependency has raised concerns that Abkhazia is becoming a de facto Russian province rather than a truly independent country. In recent years, Russian investors have bought up large portions of Abkhazia's tourism and energy sectors, increasing Russian influence. Many locals fear that over-reliance on Russia could lead to economic stagnation, corruption, and even the gradual loss of Abkhazia's identity as a separate state. Abkhazia's political isolation has deeply affected its youth, who have limited educational and career opportunities compared to their peers in recognized countries. Due to international restrictions, Abkhazian students cannot study abroad in most countries unless they obtain Russian passports. As a result, many are forced to study in Russia, where they often integrate into Russian society and do not return home. Job opportunities are also limited, as foreign companies are hesitant to invest in an unrecognized state. This has led to brain drain, with many young Abkhazians leaving permanently in search of better prospects. Additionally, the isolation has cut them off from global cultural and technological developments, leaving Abkhazia lagging behind in innovation and digital progress. Abkhazia remains a land of contrasts rich in history, yet isolated from the world, fiercely independent, yet economically dependent on Russia. Its past is marked by conflict, and its future remains uncertain. Will it gain full recognition, or will it remain in geopolitical limbo? Only time will tell.